Hi everybody, welcome to the next video. I hope your practice has been going well. I hope you've been able to meditate at least once a week with me, if not a few times a week. And I hope that you've also been noticing how nice it feels to really just take that time for yourself. To take that time to really sit and kind of be in your own space and drop out from the rest of the world and let your mind come to a stillness, right? Come to a place of rest. This weekend I was up in Vermont and I spent some time in a few different rivers actually. And while I was in the rivers, I started practicing stacking stones, taking these really big, beautiful stones and trying to balance them on each other. And it's this really interesting process where you can kind of look for edges that are flat and edges that match up. But as you're kind of starting to put the stones on, it's a lot of just kind of feeling your way into it, you know? You're feeling kind of which way it's going to fall, how to kind of correct it, twisting it a little bit of playing, a little bit of experimenting, you know, and then slowly getting to that point where it's in a nice place of balance, where you kind of just let go and back off. And I was thinking that meditation, it's very similar. It's very similar for us that, we have a lot of understanding maybe about how meditation works, but when you actually try to practice, it's really about balancing your mind. Is that you'll be sitting here and you'll notice that your mind falls kind of forwards into sleepiness, then you kind of, bring the mind back, and then you'll notice the mind kind of goes up into restlessness and into thinking and things like this. Then the mind kind of comes back and it kind of slips away into fantasies, then it comes back, and it's kind of this process of finding what is that middle place, what is the balance point. I actually a little while ago made a little card, and I think I'll try sharing it with you. So this card talks about meditation, and it talks about what's kind of needed in the practice. I can't tell if it's going to look backwards when you see it, but if it doesn't, then this is the card. So just to kind of say what's going on, in the middle of the card it talks about having a still mind. It's that place of stillness that we're looking for. And when you go around that just to the outside, you start to see that there's joy and peace and bliss and space, right? So to kind of move into that place of stillness, you're going to be passing through these really beautiful, blissful, relaxed feelings. Yeah, and then right around that, it's kind of like this bullseye, right? Right inside of that, it's kind of this feeling of relaxation and this feeling of dissolving. So as you're kind of dropping in, things start dropping away, and then you get to the joy and then the stillness. And around the feeling of dissolving and relaxation, it's just this feeling of being comfortable, right? So if you're able to feel comfortable, then the mind already starts kind of coming in and being present. The mind starts unwinding, right? So you're kind of holding the mind, you're bringing the mind to this area of kind of relaxation, of kind of comfort that feels good, right? You're breathing, you're letting go, you're allowing yourself just to be. And that's kind of this process that slowly goes layer by layer, deeper and deeper into eventually and finally that place of stillness where it almost feels like the mind itself just drops away and you're kind of just in that beautiful space. So what's around that, however, right? These are all the different ways that we can get lost. So we can get lost in restlessness and anxiety, fantasies, future thoughts, plans, worries, apathy, tiredness, dullness, disinterest, guilt, regret, past memories, doubt. Right, so when I was with my father, he would take me sometimes to the shooting range. He was a Vietnam War veteran and he really liked shooting. And he would show me these targets that they had. And the target was a bullseye, and then in each direction there was kind of some words. And it said, up on top of the target, it said pulling the wrist. Underneath it said afraid of the explosion. Over here it said using the wrong eye or something. And each one, it was kind of saying, like, if you're aiming for the target but you're shooting too high, it means that you're pulling your wrist when you shoot, so you're hitting above it. If you're shooting too low, it means you're afraid of it and you're kind of doing this and it's going too low, right? If you're right eye dominant but you're using your left eye, or you're kind of mixing up, maybe you'll shoot too much to one side. And they kind of had it down to, I don't know if it was like a science for them, but it said depending on where the bullet went, you could know kind of what you're doing wrong. And for meditation, it's kind of the same thing. That when you're aiming for that target, when you're aiming for that place in the middle, you can kind of see which direction you're going in that's not that place, and kind of how to recorrect it and what to do about it. I also feel really called to again mention and to share how meditation and daily life are very connected. right? So if your daily life, if you're living your life in a way that feels for you very disempowering, if you're in a place that that there's a lot of stuff to be processed that you haven't really dealt with yet or looked at, if you have a lot of worries, if you're constantly trying to escape into a fantasy world in some way, you will sit down to meditate, and you've created that kind of karma, you've created those mechanisms that when you try to meditate, the mind is going to keep trying to go off because that's what it's used to, right? When you leave the mind alone, that's what it wants to do because that's what you've been doing all day, that's what it remembers. Or if there's things that you haven't been able to process, those are the things that are going to come up because they're finally like, oh, now there's time. Now there's time for me to come out to be seen. I was saying to a group a few days ago that the average person, when they sit down to meditate, their mind will go one of two directions. It'll either go into restlessness or it'll go into tiredness. The tiredness kind of group, the category of people that fall into tiredness, it's often those people that push themselves a lot. It's those people that really fill their day with things to do. They're drinking coffee to keep themselves going. They might be highly motivated. They might have no choice. But simply when they meditate, when they're giving themselves this little period of time to rest and relax, the mind falls into sleep because it's tired, and it's been tired the whole time, but it's had no time or space to express that. So because you're meditating, you're giving yourself this time and this space to not be doing something, the mind is like, oh, finally, and it just wants to fall asleep, right? So if your mind is tired, maybe you're maybe pushing yourself a little bit too much in your daily life. That's important. And also, if you're meditating and you notice that the mind is getting drowsy and kind of dropping, there are active things you could do, like splashing water on the face, like standing up, like shaking out, or you can allow it to happen and you can let yourself to kind of keep nodding and nodding and nodding, and eventually the mind will come back, and it'll come back and feel more relaxed because you've almost rested enough by touching the sleep in all these little pockets, right? The other category of person is that they sit down to meditate and their mind is incredibly restless. That their mind is trying to process a lot of information. And it's kind of the same thing that throughout the day we've had so much going on and we haven't taken the time to process it. So when we sit, when we stop doing, when we allow and create space, that's when the mind is like, finally I have time to kind of think things through. So advice that I can give for this category of people, for the overthinking camp, is that you maybe sit down and you do a little journaling, right? Or you write a to-do list, or you kind of first try to get some of these things actively out of your mind so that when you sit to meditate, you say, okay, now this is actually my time to relax and be still, right? So your first non-doing point of the day isn't only the meditation. If you're doing all day and then you sit down to meditate, all of the stuff that hasn't had a place, hasn't had an expression in the doingness of your day, it's going to kind of pour into that place. And your meditation is just going to be filled with all the other stuff that you should have been making time for, but you haven't been. Okay, so really just as you're watching your mind, as you're seeing how your meditations work, what's going on, maybe start to see little tiny things. Maybe you could take a little nap in the day if you have time, right? Or like I said about the to-do list, maybe there's ways to write stuff down to get stuff out of your head so that when you sit, it's really now my time to sit. So these are little tricks and tips that can work, that might be nice to try out. And it's really up to you. Again, you have to look and you have to see kind of where you're at and what's needed. And I think the average person that is following my guided meditations will probably be able to follow me in. Right? Maybe if you're meditating on your own throughout the days, you'll find more of the tiredness or the overthinking, but the guided meditations are really this great tool that I'm kind of guiding you in there, right? So if you were to try to get in there by yourself, it might be a little confusing, chaotic, a lot of movement. So I kind of take you and I guide you in there, and then I kind of try to leave you in that spot, in that space inside of yourself. And, it's like I'm setting up the stone, and then I'm kind of leaving it. I'm leaving you to be in that space. And that's why guided meditations are so helpful. I say it's like training wheels, right, of the bike, that it gives you kind of this balance, it gives you this support, it gives you this place to kind of rest on, to go in. And that's also why things like community are important. Things like in Buddhism we say the Sangha, which is like the group, the community of practitioners. Because when we're on our own, often it's hard, often we get lost. I was at a festival this weekend, And it's really beautiful to see all these people coming together, and it created a very beautiful environment. And also one of these rivers we went to, there's all of these people that came, and it's in Vermont, and it's this quarry kind of, you could jump into it, and it's really beautiful. And it was just this really great vibe there, and none of the people there were from the festival. These were just normal people that this is kind of, it's almost this little utopian paradise, right? It's just these rocks and this water and this nature and all these people being very kind and respectful. And even though there's a lot of people there, it didn't feel crowded, just because everybody was holding such a really nice energy together. And it's really cool to see how a lot of people brought together can hold a beautiful energy. I think what we're used to seeing maybe in the news, right? Maybe what we think is going on with the governments, even what's going on in our own families. It's like we as people, as a community, are holding, we're a vessel. Imagine a bunch of people coming together, creating a vessel, and you're holding the energy of conflict, right? You're holding the energy of woundedness, right? Of anger, of unfairness. Yeah, there's a lot in these energetic vessels that we can hold together. And what we don't have enough of in our lives is a vessel that's being held of love, right? Of enoughness, of goodness, of support, of help. I feel it in my meditation classes when we sit and we're sitting silently and we're breathing, but I can feel the presence in the room. And a lot of people in the room say, my God, I meditate so much deeper here than when I'm at home, because the kind of collective energy carries them, right? That we can be carried by each other. We can help each other, assist each other, support each other. So it's really important to just acknowledge what kind of energy are you holding with people, and also what kind of energy do you need. Yeah, what would you like to search out? What would you like to be around more of? Yeah, what kinds of energies would you like to surround yourself with? This will also help you feel better and kind of be in a more uplifted, buoyant space. And I think lastly, I want to touch back on probably a similar point that I've been touching on a lot in these videos, and that's how we need to feel good to meditate. That meditation can help us feel good, and we need to feel good to meditate, right? They kind of work together. But if you're really in a bad place and you meditate, you can get to a more relaxed state. You can feel more peaceful. If you're kind of busy, if you're stressed, you can meditate, and it can bring you to a place of presence. But for the long game, so to say, if we're really trying to get deep and go deep and stay deep, you're gonna see that, right? So like you have to clear up things in your life, and also the meditation itself, it really has to feel good. That you have to be sitting there because you want to be there, and you have to find your why. Yeah, you have to find for yourself, why do I want to do this, right? What is meditation for me? Yeah, why is this important for me in my life? And really focus on that why. And then when you sit to meditate, really feel that out, right? So if you say that you want to be more peaceful and you sit down to meditate and it's not working, then in that moment, really feel, what can I do to be more peaceful? And maybe that's not pushing yourself harder. Maybe it's not judging yourself. Maybe it's not trying new things. Maybe in that very moment, you say, I'm going to just relax more. Right? If I'm here to be peaceful, then let me be peaceful, right? Let me let go from my mind everything I'm supposed to be doing, and really just allow myself to feel good being here. And that's really, again, this is one of the most important things that I learned in my meditation path, was just that kind of shift from meditation being me trying to get out of my state that I'm normally in, right? That meditation was a way to get out of this place that I usually find myself in, that I'm unhappy with. Right, which was like my daily life, my daily mind, right? It was a way that I tried to run away almost, to get out, to get away from that. Yeah, and I wasn't very successful. But when I kind of flipped all of that over and I used meditation as a way to feel good directly, as I said, that this is the time that I'm going to let go and relax. Not that meditation is going to get me relaxation, but meditation is relaxation. That I am just going to relax and let go. It really transformed the whole process, and then there's no more striving. I was never trying to reach something after that. Instead, it was really just allowing myself to be where I was in a very happy, relaxed way. And it would almost be like this downhill slide where I would just kind of slide deeper and deeper and deeper into it, because there was nothing holding me back. And this is really something for all of you to kind of look at in yourselves and try to feel out. What would that feel like for me? What mindset, what relation to this practice can I have that's going to allow me just to slide in? And maybe it's having to kind of abandon the world for a little bit, right? Maybe realize there's nothing in the world that's that important. Let it go, right? My peace of mind comes first. Let it go, right? Or maybe there's something in you that says, I really need this for my own sanity, and really just says, like, for my own sanity, I'm going to let go. I'm going to just relax. Or maybe you really are good at just feeling, and you just start to feel like, oh, it feels better to relax more. Oh, it feels better to be peaceful. Oh, it feels better when everything kind of stops and lets go. That you use that feeling of it feels better to just see what's the next thing that feels better, and just kind of use that as this progression. So these are kind of, again, just these little tips, these little tools for you to work with and for you to look at. Again, meditation, it's a very interactive experience that you're in your mind and you're kind of playing with different relationships of things. And a lot of the time it's less of an active doing and more of a perception shift, right? So I had really amazing meditations also when I would say to myself, it's good enough. That I would sit there and I would say, whatever's happening, it's good enough. You don't need to go any deeper. It's good enough. It's fine. You're fine. It's good enough. And just feeling like it's good enough, it was kind of this like lubricant, and everything just fell into a really deep place. So to tell myself it's good enough, there wasn't really anything to it. It's not like I had to do something to get the meditation to work. I just had to shift my relationship to it. I had to find my way to let go of it. Yeah, and again, this is something I could help you out with if you want to reach out, if you want to write in the messages or write me a message kind of, I'm finding this going on, what can I do? I could probably help you find about where's your hang up and find the way to release it. But it's really important in your practice to slowly find what are my ways to release, what are my ways to get deeper. And also the more that you play with that in your daily life, you'll notice, like, I said before, I'll be sitting in a car and somebody will cut me off or something will happen that usually I'd be upset or someone else is upset. And I really just feel like it's not worth it. It doesn't actually matter. Yeah, and then this ability to let go into the meditation, it also starts to transport itself into the daily life. That in situations and arguments and conflicts, you really say, yeah, you know what, I feel angry and I want to talk about this and I want to resolve this and I want to be done with this, because actually I'm not interested to carry around anger. I'm not interested to pollute my mind all day. I'm not interested to be unhappy. That we start actively doing things in our lives that we become happier because we know what happiness feels like and we want it. And we start to learn little tips and tricks for letting things go, but we also build up a bit of a passion to go through all of our situations, to really see things to the end, that they can release and be resolved, and that we become free. Yeah, so it's kind of, again, this multi-tiered approach that one time, you're sitting in your meditation and you're working on letting go, but then also in your daily life working on letting go. So really it's like the tracks of the train. You need both of them, right? So you need the meditation to find that place to work directly with your mind, and then you also need that other track, which is how am I going to implement this into my life to make this a normal, natural thing, to unburden myself so that I can keep living in kind of a more uplifted, happier, easier, more free way. Yeah, and this is, again, something for you to look at, something for you to work with. So when we sit to meditate, when we're going to sit down to practice, again, you're going to sit in a place that there's not a lot of people around, that there's not a lot going on necessarily, that you're really able to be in your own space, that you feel safe, that you feel tapped in, that you can relax. And maybe for the meditation today, like I said before, even before you start meditating, you can just sit and look and see, how do I feel? Am I tired? Am I restless? What's going on? And take a few minutes just to do nothing. Don't even meditate. Before we even begin, before you press play on the meditation video, just kind of drop in with yourself and really feel, how am I doing? What's going on? Is there anything that I would like to think about or deal with or resolve before I start to meditate? Yeah, is there anything that I actually want to first just get done and lay to rest, and then I'll take the time to meditate, right? So to give yourself another little period of time before the meditation of just resting, relaxing, not having to do, but instead really just take some space and see what's going on. And if you feel pretty complete, then you could start the meditation practice and see what's going on for yourself, okay? So take a little time first, and then sit to meditate and see if that enhances the quality of your meditation, because you've already allowed yourself to kind of process things that need to be processed. So thank you for this talk, these little talks, just to prime your mind. I guess I could say that there's little pieces of information and understandings to bring in but it's also a bit of a primer that as you're listening to this and you're understanding it and your mind's kind of realizing, oh, okay, that's what this is about, and then you watch the meditation video afterwards, it allows your mind to kind of sink in because this information is fresh and it all starts to kind of make sense in the way that the gears are turning, as it were. So yeah, thank you for listening to this video, and I really hope you enjoy your meditation, and I'll see you there.